Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of The Hunt. From what our producer Amanda just shared with me, this is episode number 22. So that gives us a longer run than a lot of recent TV shows that have gotten canceled, and I could name a few good shows that were probably on a better run than. All kudos to our production team. We couldn't have done it without them, and just a real honor to be here again with you guys for another week of this show that's dedicated towards helping candidates, hiring managers, job seekers navigate the recruiting landscape through all the twists and turns and craziness that comes along with it. So for those that are tuning in for the first time or those that have been with us all along, welcome. And we're back with a real topical episode today that I hope you get a lot of value out of. But my name is Kevin Roth. For those who haven't watched before, I'm the managing director of Advice. We're a boutique recruiting agency serving the New York area for over 38 years. And I brought this forum to you because we see so many people struggling with different situations throughout the course of the recruitment process. So we try to touch on different topics each week, but this is meant to be engaging. And this whole live format is meant to have you interact. So throughout the show, chime in with questions, comments, especially on today's episode, where I've heard a lot of people ask about these things and the specific topic, over my course of conversation. So without further ado, today we're going to talk a little bit about how you find the right recruiter. And in this sort of economy and just in the job market in general, it is so competitive. So a lot of people are constantly wondering how to find the right person to align themselves with, to find them that dream job, and really understanding better about what a recruiter does. So again, throughout the show, if you have questions about recruiting world in general, about what we do, how you can separate the good ones from the bad ones, chime in with those questions in the comment box, and I'll make sure I get to those throughout the show. But thanks again, everyone, for tuning in. I see Jenna Fox, a fan favorite, back again. Happy early Thanksgiving, Jenna. And Alan Schwartz, one of the originals and one of the first 5 episodes, I think. Alan, the founder of Advice. It's an honor to have him tuning in. So let's start first with what is a recruiter and what do we do, right? On the agency side, what is this world all about? A lot of people don't even understand the concept of what a recruiter's place is in the process. So in the most basic of forms, recruiters are matchmakers, right? We're trying to align a company's desires, wants for a position with a candidate that meets that criteria. So from a candidate's perspective, aligning with the right recruiter should theoretically get you introduced to the right companies and get your foot in the door. But beyond that, what people don't realize is the impact that the right recruiter can have on the entire recruitment process. So yeah, the initial step is sending your resume in and getting it in front of the hiring manager. But throughout that process, there are endless conversations that take place, concerns that the company might have, hesitations you might have, feedback around interviews, things that you can get better at as you go through the process. Navigating through these things, helping you guide you through interviews and what to expect, setting you up for success when it comes time to discuss salaries. So a recruiter is really so much more than just an introducer of a resume. It's someone who's going to be an advisor, a guide, someone who's going to sort of take your hand and guide you through the entire process, especially if you haven't gone through a recruiting process before. So it's always important to keep in mind that most people change jobs maybe 4, 5, 6, 7 times in an entire career. As recruiters, we guide 5, 6, 7 people through that in a week. So the knowledge is there. If you can really align yourself with the right one, a recruiter at the basis of things is almost a career guide and a matchmaker who you really want to be an extension of yourself out there, keeping the eyes out for you to find you the right fit. So from understanding that, hopefully it gives you a sense of the magnitude of the impact that the right recruiter can have in helping you in supporting your career development and growth. The most common question I get is, do I really need a recruiter to find a job, or when is it beneficial to use a recruiter? So long story short, no, absolutely not. Listen, there is nothing necessarily that we do that's proprietary that you couldn't do on your own. We don't have, oftentimes, unless it's a confidential search, there's nothing that you can't do yourself. Having said that, there are many situations in which the value add is tremendous and at no detriment to you. Clients are paying a fee for the service of recruiters to go find them talent. So you are not impacted in the least in any financial way. So the benefit is out there, and especially if you really find the right role, it's a win-win situation. But there are situations where it is more beneficial to use a recruiter, and there are situations where you might feel just as comfortable going direct. If you have a friend that works at this company, says great things, that can get you in the door, that's fantastic. They'll give you the inside scoop throughout the process. But in terms of the situations when it really does pay to have a recruiter and when you should really be thinking about aligning yourself with the right person, number one, if you just don't have the time to dedicate to a search, looking for a job is a full-time job in itself. You really got to be able to sift through the noise, be able to zero in on the right roles, not even to mention then figuring out how to balance all of those different opportunities, interview, funnel the emails. I mean, so many things can get lost in the shuffle. So if you have a full-time job already that's fairly demanding, it is a no-brainer to have a recruiter looking out for you to be able to present those opportunities, deal with a lot of the grunt work. For those of you that have shopped for an apartment, similar concept. Listen, looking for an apartment, theoretically, any of us could go out there, look through the ads, find places we want to go, drive around to them, organize our time, deal with the follow-ups. But one, there's probably someone out there who's better and professional about this that knows what they're doing. And two, a lot of us just don't have the time to do that. So to have someone who's vetting those things on our behalf and sending them to us makes our lives a lot easier. And recruiting is very similar in that context. So one, it's the time constraints. Two, if your resume or your background doesn't align directly to the types of roles you're applying for or looking to get into, line yourself up with a recruiter. If you're out there right now and you're watching this and you're trying to get into these roles, but you're not getting feedback on your resume and you recognize you're always missing this one piece, whether it be a certification or certain years of experience you're a little light on, but you feel you're up to the challenge and you just can't get through that first wave, find a recruiter that works for you, because our conversations are more verbal in nature when we're presenting a candidate. It's not just a static sheet of paper. And when you're sending your resume through an application process, there's 500 resumes that they're going through, and they're cherry picking the ones that hit very specific points. And the only thing they can judge you off of is a piece of paper. So if you're just missing certain pieces, odds are you're getting passed over for people that on paper read more directly, and you're never even getting seen. So make sure you align yourself with a recruiter that can better tell your story, present your case in a more vocal way, and share the color around your experience. So again, step one, really time constraints. There's no greater thing than having someone looking out for you who you really trust and value. Number two is really understanding if your background's a little off from what you're going for, the right recruiter can really position and strategically sell that experience in a way that your resume won't. And number three, if you could just be honest and humble with yourself and recognize your soft skills are a little weaker. You're not as strong on interviews. You're not as strong in negotiating when it comes to salary. You're not the type that tends to do very well. Your experience is great, but you always seem to just fall short throughout the process. Find the right recruiter. If you're out there watching this and you're feeling like, man, I always know I'm right for these roles, but I keep hitting a wall. I keep bombing the interviews, or I mess something up and I'm just never comfortable. The right recruiter, again, as I mentioned at the top, is a guide, is an advisor, will help coach you through the process, will help bring out the strengths and help refine the weaknesses. And it's really about that partnership. So I think that's so important to recognize and be true to yourself. And if you have some of those shortfalls, the right recruiter can overcome those things. So we understand what makes a recruiter, what a recruiter does in theory. And now we understand when it's most beneficial to take advantage of those services that, again, are a win-win to you. There is no detriment to having someone looking out for you. It doesn't affect you in any way. It only benefits. So I want to talk about how you now identify the right recruiter. And again, lastly, throw in some questions. Use the comment box to throw some questions in here if you're wondering what we do, how we add value, how we work, behind the scenes, anything going on. This is your time and your forum. Happy to answer any of those questions that we get. But the last topic I want to cover is really, how do you know if you have a good recruiter? What signs can you look for to really understand? And if you haven't gotten the point already from early in this conversation, the right recruiter versus the wrong one can have a significant impact on the experience that you go through, the job you end up landing on, the salary you end up receiving, and the viability of you even getting that position, because they have so much ability and relationship to be able to maneuver and influence the process in a positive way or potentially a negative way if you don't align yourself with the right one. So in terms of what to look for, it starts very early on. really early on. When you get that in mail, you're out there, you're checking your inbox, you are now a manager, you have 7 years of experience, and you get an in mail through LinkedIn on a staff level role. Okay. First warning sign. This individual's probably just blasting out a lot of messages to a lot of different people, happen to catch you in the fire, you end up communicating, talking. That initial stepping point that they didn't understand enough just from looking at your profile to recognize at least a competitive area that would interest you as their first reach out point, that's your first warning sign. Okay. Other signs to look for. What's their communication style? Read through their messages to you. Do they seem well spoken, well thought out? When you speak to them, do they articulate well? Do they seem confident? Do they seem to have a knowledge of what they do in the areas they focus on? And you might say, why is this important if they have a great opportunity? Because this person is going to be the one that's going to bat for you if you have concerns throughout the process, or if you have hesitations and you're looking for guidance. This is going to be the person relaying those things to the client and doing it in a way that's not going to jeopardize your opportunities. Conversely, if the client has hesitations on you throughout the process, this is the person that's going to be advocating for you and having to make a case for you in a very articulate, well-founded way. So if you're noticing they're not paying attention, they're all over the place, they're just trying to fly through a sales pitch, their written communication is all over the place and scattered and doesn't seem well thought out, don't just brush that to the side. Even if it's a solid opportunity, this person is going to be the one that's going to be your representation. So look for those signs. Look for how they present themselves. Look for the pride they take in what they do and the confidence with which they speak. And lastly, do they listen? Do they hear what you're saying, right? Or is there just in one ear, out the other? And you can know that. Always think about the very first opportunity a recruiter presents to you after your initial conversation. Because that first phone conversation, you give them a ton of detail. This is what I'm looking for. This is what I like. These are the types of roles I want. If the next day they call you and it's a completely different thing from what you just shared, and they don't even preclude it by saying, I know you wanted this, but that's a warning sign as well. You need someone who listens, who understands, who's going to be more of a relationship for you and an advisor to you that you can trust and have confidence in, versus someone that's just using you to make a payday. So look for those warning signs early on and avoid those relationships that you don't have ultimate confidence in. The best thing in the world, the most beautiful situations in the world, and the ones that I enjoy, when we get to the end of a process and a candidate can actually ask me, Kevin, knowing I benefit if they take a job with me, they will honestly ask me, Kevin, should I take this job or should I take the other one? I trust you. You know everything about both. What do you think? And they trust that I'll give them an honest answer. Or they can ask me, do you think this is the best we can get on salary? And they're going to trust my answer, knowing that, I might, as a salesperson, I might just be saying yes. The trust is there and the confidence is there that we're on the same page. And if you can find that, the benefits are absolutely unbelievable in how it can drive your success and your ultimate enjoyment and enthusiasm throughout the process. Okay. So aside from just keeping tabs on those signs, and please chime in with questions or comments. We got about 5 minutes left, so make sure you throw those in before we wrap up the show. But how can you also know if you have a good recruiter? Interview them. You don't have to go through a 10-round interview process, because I can tell you from experience that's probably not going to get you off on the right foot. But ask them a few preliminary questions, right? Don't just hear their sales pitch, yeah, I'm interested, and go. Find out a little bit about them. What industries do they specialize in? What types of roles do they focus on for the most part? Where do they seem to have like the greatest skill set or strength in the types of jobs that they work on? And lastly, ask them, almost pretend as if you have no idea what a recruiter does, and ask them what are the benefits of using someone like them over just going directly. And you know the answer, especially if you watch this amazing, amazing episode, which is extremely enlightening. And ask them that and see what their response is. It's almost more so to see how they articulate and communicate that. Because if a recruiter fumbles when asked how they can benefit you, that doesn't give me too much confidence that there's someone that knows the true value add of what the right recruiter can provide. All right. So in thinking about this, make sure you keep an eye out for those warning signs, ask good questions, interview recruiters before you really start partnering with them, because with the amount of volume out there in the job world right now, you shouldn't need more than 2 recruiters looking out for you, 2 good recruiters to be able to find a great job that you want. And others, you can still keep your options open and still feel that the dream opportunity falls in your lap from someone else. But with 2 great recruiters at most, more often than not, I'd say 1. But if you felt like you need a little more, with 2 recruiters, you should have all of the opportunities that you need to be able to present with people that you trust. So with that said, I want to get to a few comments and that were thrown in throughout the show. So some of these are comments, some of these are question marks, but Matthew West, hey Matthew, good to see you again, mentions a lot about finding the right recruiters, about making a connection. And if the recruiter seems more like a talent strategist and takes the time to understand your wants and needs, understand the industry and the company, then the recruiter can add immediate value to both you and the company. What are the red flags of bad recruiters? So I hope I answered some of that earlier, Matthew, on some of those points that I look out for, that I would, from having been in this seat. Remember, I'm in this spot, so I'm able to see these things on a daily basis and hear these stories. But I'd say the listening component, as I mentioned, the fact that they don't seem to grasp exactly what you're looking for, some of those warning signs early on, and really the genuine interest in what you want and what you're looking for versus just shoving opportunities down your throat. And here's a good job. If you notice, they never really asked you what drives you, what's important to you, what motivates you, why you're looking to leave, and seem to grasp that. If that never came up in conversation, you probably got the wrong person, because those things are so critical to developing that bond. So I hope that helps answer your question, Matthew. And then Aaron Greenberg, one of the principals at Advice. Do recruiters have trusted relationships and represent opportunities that truly are exclusive that I would not be able to find on my own? Yes. So as I mentioned earlier in the show, there's not a ton. It's not like we have this proprietary insight that you can't find all of these opportunities elsewhere. But there are opportunities in which we're engaged on an exclusive basis as well. There's situations in which the company hasn't even announced to the team they're bringing on a new member of the group, and they don't want to necessarily throw it out there in the open, so they engage us on more of an exclusive, confidential basis. There's searches in which there's a replacement happening that isn't yet necessarily anyone's aware of. So there are a lot of different scenarios in which we're engaged on an exclusive basis that, again, with no downside to you, to be able to have that recruiter looking out for you, you might be opening yourself up to opportunities that you otherwise would have never had the opportunity to explore. And in addition to that, you're also skipping the competition, because all those opportunities that are publicly posted out there, those are the ones that have 500, 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 applicants that you're competing with. The ones that are exclusive and really focused on very small sort of portfolios of candidates, those are the ones where you're going to have the chance to shine the most as well. So long story short, if you have the opportunity, you really can benefit from having that right partnership. Just like any profession, there are good ones and bad ones out there. But if you find a good one, the value that can be added to your process, to your career growth, to your experience in searching, to your success rate in being able to get offers from companies that you're actually interviewing for, and most importantly, for a lot of people, the compensation that you're ultimately able to secure at the end of the day is unparalleled if you have the right person in your corner. So I hope that helps really peel back the curtain on the world of recruiting. And as always, connect with me. I'm tagged to this post. You can send me messages throughout the week if you're ever curious to get more of a take on what we do and how we can add value. And obviously, I take a lot of pride in what I do. And this is kind of the sentiment of Advice as a whole. So if you're watching this and you are looking for that support, reach out to Advice. We're tagged on this post. Follow Advice on LinkedIn. Make sure you get access to the content that we put out on a weekly basis. We're on Instagram, Facebook. Amanda from our office does an unbelievable job with this stuff, but we're here to help. So reach out to us. I hope this helps. And we won't be back next week for Thanksgiving. I actually take some time off, but I wish everybody out there a very happy Thanksgiving. Thank you so much for tuning into The Hunt and keeping us going. 22 episodes strong, and looking forward to continuing this well into the future. But everyone have a great rest of the week and an awesome weekend. Happy Thanksgiving next week, and we'll be back with an all-new episode of The Hunt in 2 weeks' time. Thanks again for tuning in.